Recapping week 9, and I am proud as hell to say that I am 1 for 2 so far on Game of the Week. And that's really all we can ask for. Let's hope I go 2 for 3. Cowboys-Eagles lived up to the hype. It was a great game, came down to just a few yards at the very end. And a fairly exciting day of football with CJ Stroud as the headliner. Welcome to the show, everybody. Recapping Sunday's action here, getting ready for Sunday Night Football. Adam Azer, Heath Cummings, Dave Richard. And CJ Stroud was started in 48% of leagues. He scored 51.8 fantasy points. Holy cow. That's where we will begin. What else are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the surging Rachaad White versus the disappointing DeAndre Swift. Devontae Adams with another stinker. Basically, the backup quarterbacks didn't really come through for the wide receivers today, did they? We're going to talk about Jahan Dotson, though. Deshaun Watson's return, which was successful. Aaron Jones, is he back to being a must-start guy? But first, Heath, you're really happy about that. I know you're a big Stroud guy. So he throws for 470 yards and 5 touchdowns. Booyah!
He was fantastic. And almost everybody who you might have considered starting around him was fantastic. In fact, one guy we didn't, Noah Brown, was fantastic. Tank Dell, amazing. Nico got in the end zone. Dalton Schultz, dump off King. It was just, and they kind of tried a little bit early in the game. They were running on early downs, and they finally just kind of went away from it and started throwing some shorter stuff, and then they went over the top. It was beautiful.
You almost have to hope that they've realized now what the identity of their team is and what it should be. And enough of this run game. Like it's not like, oh, Dameon Pierce is out. That's why they couldn't run the ball. They can't run the ball. That's the sentence. And so if they roll with CJ Stroud moving forward, this can continue, and we could have some really great games from multiple Texans players the rest of the season.
One of the believe it or not I was going to do, and then Adam said we are opening the show with CJ Stroud, so I don't get to talk about him later. CJ Stroud is a top 5 dynasty quarterback. I've had him between 5 and 7 for the last month. I just dropped him to 7 because Burrow was back at 100% and better for this year. But I mean, he's 4 or 5 years younger than all these other guys, right, and putting up these kind of numbers at 22 years old.
Tell me a couple of quarterbacks you have ahead of him in your dynasty rankings, and then maybe like 3 behind.
It's Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Tua.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if he's quite. I can't do it off of one game.
Oh, Tua, Trevor Lawrence. I'm sorry.
Behind him.
No, yeah, Lawrence is behind Tua.
No, but those guys are behind Stroud.
Stroud, correct, yeah.
It's aggressive.
But they were behind Stroud before this game.
Still aggressive.
How many rookies have had a 51 or anything close to this?
I mean,
how many football players have? It's rare. You don't see this every.
But it's not just one game. Like, he started off his career with a stretch as good as Trevor Lawrence has ever had.
I don't know if that's true. He had 3 straight games with 25 points, basically, right? Between
and
20
no interceptions.
Yeah, but just in terms of fantasy points, I don't know. Maybe that's true. It was about 76 points over 3 games. Yeah, it was impressive. Then he had 3 kind of not great games in a row: 16.2, 18.2, 12.9 points.
All right.
And he comes back with this. But Dave, let's just talk about the immediate future for him. You look at his schedule; it's a mix of good and bad. So we won't get too deep into the weeds there. But is CJ Stroud a must start? Don't even think about sitting. It's not going to be like that because I know people are going to have CJ Stroud and someone else really good. So I know there's always going to be a decision. But do you consider him basically a must start guy?
Well, but it's interesting because I'm sure there's people out there that have CJ Stroud on the bench and they started Mahomes or Tua. There's people going to be who are out there that have those types of guys. I think it's the fantasy managers that had Stroud and Carr or Stroud and Minshew, and they made a mistake this week. And they're going to say next week, oh, yeah, I'm going to go with CJ Stroud. He's got a challenging matchup at Cincinnati next week. And if they just, it's going to come down to this. If they can't run the football, you know what the upside is. And there's potential for him to be very good. I kind of want to start him next week against Cincinnati as a low-end guy. And we're on the search, especially next week. Goodness gracious, with the teams that are on bye in week 10. I know Miami is. I know
Miami, Philadelphia, Kansas City, and the Rams.
Philly.
It's brutal.
Yeah. So he's gonna crack the top 12 full show. It's a matter of whether or not he can get like as high as 7 or 8. It's going to be a tough matchup against Cincinnati, but I can't stress this enough. He made some unbelievable throws today. This was not just about a favorable matchup. It turned out to be one. You start guys against Tampa Bay from now on. Will Levis gets him in week 10, by the way. But I think that CJ Stroud is he's got a hell of an arm. He's got great weapons. He finally connected again with Tank Dell. It's going to be hard to say, oh, yeah, he's going to stink against Cincinnati.
Top 6 next week, top 8 rest of the season.
Thank you. I think Tampa Bay also lost. I mean, Tampa Bay was 21st against quarterbacks going in. And they lost Jamel Dean in the first half, one of their top corners. But okay, I don't. I mean, that seems a little ambitious because I think I'd rather have Dak Prescott than CJ Stroud.
Sure,
I would not.
CJ Stroud, I don't know. Does this bother you at all? Going into the game, he had the 4th lowest completion percentage in the NFL, and now he has the 6th lowest completion percentage in the NFL. And he's got, I think, 78 rushing yards and a touchdown. So yes, I am poking holes here. I get that.
What's his?
I mean, all you have to do is look at his last 3 games, and you can start poking.
Right.
What's his intended air yards per attempt look like?
Give me 2 seconds. Let's go on to our next topic.
It was terrible last week.
It was very high this week. It was like 11 yards this week.
Yes.
Because that would go hand in hand with a low completion percentage.
Yeah. But usually we don't like quarterbacks who don't run and have like the 5th lowest completion percentage, But I understand he's doing some great things. All right, look, he's great. You have him. He's 92% rostered. I can't tell you to pick up CJ Stroud. 48% started this week. That's going to go up, but Cincinnati's going to be a bigger challenge than the Buccaneers were. So, Dave, if it's not CJ Stroud, who's the biggest winner in fantasy week 9?
I don't know if any of the guys that I'm going to tell you are the biggest winner in fantasy week 9. And honestly, it should probably be Josh Dobbs because of what he ended up doing. So I'm a bad person to ask. I have 3 winners. None of them are the biggest winner, but it might be a dude who didn't even play, and that's James Conner. Because that Cardinals
3 biggest winners, Adam.
They were so bad.
I took 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, who?
The amazing part is I went after Dave and still got 1, 2, and 3. Joshua Dobbs.
I don't look at winners and losers the same way as you do.
His fantasy value changed.
Who?
Like he's now Joshua Dobbs did.
Oh yeah, he was the best one for sure.
Right.
I just
Keaton Mitchell, huge winner. Aaron Jones, 20 touches, he's back. Huge winner. Those are your 3 big winners of the week.
Dobbs is definitely a big winner. I'm a little nervous to say Keaton Mitchell had a great game. What does it mean going forward, Heath?
He's a must-roster player, and he's currently rostered in like 2% of leagues. So
sure. So he's going to be
enormous
a guy to add off waivers. We mentioned that weeks and weeks ago.
He's in like a 3-way split, and Gus Edwards is clearly the
listen. I'm not saying he's a must-start player. I'm not saying he's going to be a top 30 running back rest of season. I'm saying that guy with that speed and that offense is a must-roster player. You drop Zamir White and Joshua Kelly and all those. Yes. All those guys you've been holding on to for upside.
That doesn't make him a top 3 winner of the week, Heath. Top 3?
For sure. Said you once told me that because you're now saying you don't look at winners the same way I did. I tried to look at it the way that you do. You said winners are guys whose fantasy outlook significantly changed. Keaton Mitchell went from not rostered to must roster. That's an enormous change.
Must roster feels a little strong. That's all.
No, I agree that he's a most roster. I disagree that he is a top 3 winner. What are we even talking about? We're wasting time.
Yes.
Bottom line is this: the Cardinals' run game, the Cardinals' offense was absolutely atrocious. You're never going to see Clayton Tune on a football field again unless it's in the NFL. They didn't even get inside the Browns' 35-yard line the entire game. Like forget about the goal line, forget about inside the 10, forget about the red zone. Cardinals couldn't do it. The next time we see James Conner play, it's going to be with Kyler Murray in the backfield, and this offense will be a lot different. The timing for him to come back is going to be great. And there isn't another running back that the Cardinals coaching staff that's healthy, or at least was healthy in this game, that they can feel good sharing the field with James Conner with. He's going to get a ton of work the rest of the way. So he's an absolute winner. And James Conner is going to go right back to being an immediate starter with high confidence in fantasy.
Your argument that Keaton Mitchell is not a top 3 winner is that James Conner is going to be an RB1 when he's healthy like he has been for the last 2 years.
He's a winner today.
This is a good question. And I was going to ask this, but would you use the number one waiver claim on Keaton Mitchell? Because I most certainly would not.
I don't know. I've not had the number one waiver claim in any league all year long.
So, Mr.
Oh, wow. Wow, Heath. Wow. I think there should be, first of all, for Heath. But I also think I wish we need a mechanism. We use something called StreamYard to record. We need a mechanism to show who is highlighting comments. So when you see like someone pull up a comment, like Heath sitting on a giant bag of helium tonight, it wasn't me. And me, Heath, and Schaefer are the only ones who can bring up comments.
I often bring up comments making fun of myself.
Do you?
Yeah, I just did.
Making fun of you or me?
Me.
Both of you.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't think I'd use it on Keaton Mitchell, but hopefully you don't have it. Right?
So
anyway,
we'll talk about those Ravens running backs when we get to the game.
Yes, thank you. So James Conner for Dave. The combination of Kyler Murray and James Conner is potentially elite. I mean, you could be talking about
elite.
Yes, I have this. I have
the term really good. Elite feels like I don't know. I can't think of an example.
Well,
they've both been top 5 at their position together, so that seems potentially elite.
2 years ago, when Chase Edmonds was on the team. There were a few games. There were like 5 or 6 games that Edmonds missed. One game he played like 1 snap. In those games, the only running back who was better than James Conner was Jonathan Taylor. I want to say Conner averaged well over 20 fantasy points in those games, or maybe not, but about 20 or more fantasy points. So they have been elite in the past. Hopefully he comes back and he's healthy, and hopefully Kyler is back next week. He has to be, or he's out for the season. They have to activate him. All right. What are we promoting tonight? Let's talk about Sportsline. Great stuff on Sportsline. You're going to hear a Beyond the Box Score episode tomorrow. Well, how about the Beyond the Box Score article from Jacob Gibbs? How about DFS content from Jamie? How about Beat the Waiver Wire from Heath? We've got stuff from Dave. We've got more from Heath and Dave, too. Promo code Richard if you want to support Dave. Promo code Heath if you want to support Heath. Use it on Sportsline. Get your first month for $1. And after that, it's only $9.99, I believe. So it's terrific value. And Sportsline is also a great gambling website. Amazing picks there. You will love it. Biggest losers. Heath, who's the biggest loser in week 9?
Well, I think you should probably ask Dave. No, I would say the biggest loser this week was Roschon Johnson.
Okay.
I think it's very droppable. I'd rather not, but I think I'd have to, like, if I'm going to choose between Keaton Mitchell and Roschon Johnson for 1 week to see what happens, I'd rather see what happens with Keaton Mitchell. Didn't take advantage of the Khalil Herbert injury in any way at all. Had fewer catches in this game than Darrington Evans. He's behind Deontay Foreman, and as soon as Khalil Herbert's back, he'll be behind him too.
I think someone's going to have to be inactive. And it was Foreman before the injury to Khalil Herbert. He was inactive weeks 2 through 5. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But yes, definitely Johnson is pretty droppable at this point. Dave, who's your biggest loser?
The only thing I can think of with Johnson is that if the Bears go into future mode, because they know they're not going anywhere this year, they're not competing for a playoff spot, do they see what they have in Roschon? But that might not happen for another couple of weeks. They do play Carolina in week 10. If Herbert isn't back, then maybe Roschon, maybe it's still worth holding on to. I don't know what to tell you about Kyle Pitts anymore. I've tried defending him when he's had some bad games. This was supposed to be the perfect storm for Kyle Pitts. Drake London out. Taylor Heineke throwing all over the place downfield, on the field. Instead, he was 3rd in targets and receiving yards behind Jonnu Smith and Kadarrell Hodge. What the hell? This isn't supposed to be what was supposed to happen to Kyle Pitts. How do you start this guy? Yeah. How do you feel good about starting him moving forward? I can't really do it. Except he plays Arizona next week. That sounds really good. But that might be another 9 PPR point game.
Could you make the case that he was a winner in Dynasty?
Why? So you can trade for him on the cheap when he ends up on a different team and they end up using him better?
No, because they lost to his team starting Jaron Hall and playing a guy who hadn't taken a snap for him in practice. And the chances of him not having Arthur Smith coaching him next year are better.
Much better. Yeah. The wheels that I think are falling off. I mean, think about the last 2 weeks. Will Levis lights them up for 4 touchdowns. And then Josh Dobbs comes in
is 3
and does this, and they choke. Yeah, it's just Arthur. I think we're all tired of Arthur Smith. In fact, Dave, I think maybe you picked the wrong Falcon here because Bijan Robinson is so damn frustrating. And they had 3 plays near the goal line. He didn't touch the ball. They ran a jet sweep to Jonnu Smith, and he got stuffed. And people are really frustrated, and I get it. Yeah, I get it. It's annoying. Like, I don't know what to say about Bijan. If he can't be successful against the Arizona Cardinals next week, we know he can. My God, if he would get 18 carries a game, he'd destroy the league. But they refuse to do it. So Arthur Smith is not good for fantasy.
He tries too hard to be unpredictable. The difference between Pitts and Bijan is it's 2 things. Number 1, the investment that fantasy managers made in Bijan, you don't want to necessarily sit that. Number 2, it's harder to replace a running back than it is a tight end. We come up with names to stream at tight end every single week. We're going to do it again this week. You can go ahead and pick up one of those names to start over Pitts if you want to. Much harder to say, start Keaton Mitchell, sit Bijan Robinson.
I don't things are terrible for Kyle Pitts, but it was I don't know what my chances of streaming better than 9.6 fantasy points at tight end are.
Yeah, but
Let's talk about the guys that we could have picked up at any point in the last 2 or 3 weeks that were much better than him today. Ferguson, Taysom Hill.
Well, those guys aren't available anymore.
No, they're not anymore, but someone else will be. Luke Musgrave is going to be available.
We've had a lot of streaming mistakes as well.
Of course, but mistake is Kyle Pitts' middle name.
Okay. If you have Taysom Hill and Kyle Pitts, if you have Ferguson and Kyle Pitts, are you sitting Kyle Pitts?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. We got some news and notes to get to here, so let's get to it. Daniel Jones may have torn his ACL. I don't know what the Giants are going to do at quarterback. Tyrod Taylor's on IR. Tommy DeVito. I think Matt Barkley would have a chance to win that job.
I'll tell you what they're going to do at quarterback. They're going to try and draft Caleb Williams or Drake May.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. They're going to be bad, and I don't think anyone's going to be startable other than Barkley for them. Jaron Hall left in the first quarter. He was replaced by Josh Dobbs, who scored 28.9 fantasy points and is 30% rostered and gets the Saints, unfortunately, next week. But then Denver and Chicago, and then a bye. Dallas Goedert left in the third quarter with, I believe, a wrist injury. He is on a bye in week 10. Hopefully he can get healthy there. KJ Osborne left in the second quarter. That was a scary hit. Thankfully, he got up and hopefully is okay. Christian Watson left in the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter with a variety of injuries, including a head injury. Josh Downs re-aggravated his knee injury, and he barely played. He left in the first half. Cam Akers left in the second half. Josh Palmer is on IR. If you still have time to pick up Quentin Johnston somehow, you should do it because he hasn't played yet. DeAndre Swift fumbled twice. I bring that up. He dominated carries today. Kenneth Gainwell did score, but Swift had most of the carries. He fumbled twice. One of them wasn't really his fault. Both were recovered by Philadelphia, but it's been a tough run for DeAndre Swift. They're going into their bye week. Cleveland left tackle Jedrick Wills was carted off.
Yeah,
it
looked terrible.
Yeah. The Rams cornerback Kobe Durant left in the first half. The Eagles had 3 key injuries, but I think 2 of them are okay. But Nakobe Dean left with a foot injury. And then on the last possession, Darius Slay and James Bradbury were hurt. I don't know if either came back in, but
Bradbury did.
Okay. And Slay looked okay. And plus they have a bye week. I mentioned Tampa Bay cornerback Jamel Dean left in the first half. Giants cornerback Adoree Jackson left with a concussion. Miami offensive lineman Robert Jones was carted off. The Dolphins offensive line just cannot stay healthy. Houston. Oh, how about Daria Gumbawale? He's a big winner.
Yes.
What a hero.
Kaimi Fairbairn, Houston's kicker, he got hurt. Also, 2 safeties for the Texans left in this game. But Dario Gumbawale came in and handled kicks, and he kicked a field goal, like a huge field goal at the end of the game. It was amazing.
My 14-year-old was so mad. I called him in. I told him what was going on. Dario was getting ready to kick off. He thought it was going to be awesome, and he gets to kick the touchback. He's like, that was just like a regular kickoff. I thought this was going to be something special.
Thanks for nothing, Dad.
I think the touchback there was a penalty, right? Like he kicked it from distance.
Yeah, he had 2 touchbacks. Both of them were penalties.
Oh, really? Wow. Good for him, though. That was awesome. Amari Cooper caught a touchdown. Amari Cooper had a good game, but he caught a touchdown off of a deflection. If you watch that play, I really think that ball was getting intercepted. I think there was a chance for a pick 6 on that play. The safety had that read so well. He was coming over. The ball gets tipped up in the air, ends up in Amari Cooper's hands for a touchdown. And I think we need to give some credit to Eric Bieniemy. A little hat tip here. Eric Bieniemy, the Commanders, 400 total yards in back-to-back games for the first time in 3 seasons. And they have a pretty fantasy-relevant offense, so good for them. We'll take a break. When we come back, a quick look at the waiver wire, early look at the waiver wire, buy or sell, more winners and losers, and we recap the games after this. All right, it's Sunday night. We thank you for being here. And with any waiver wire names you want to throw out? Keaton Mitchell, obviously. Anyone else?
Let's see what we've got in our early waivers list. It's not a pretty list as of now. Luke Musgrave, Cade Otton had a huge game. I think it's a second straight game where he's been involved for Tampa Bay. We've got to keep an eye on him.
3 in a row with 6 or more targets for Otton.
Okay, so that's interesting. Noah Brown. It's 2 straight games for Noah Brown having a significant role for the Texans in the passing game. I don't think he'll ever go off for a game like this again the rest of his career, but could be a decent bye week replacement wide receiver, bench guy. What's Demario Douglas's roster percent?
Like 35%. He needs to still be on the list, but
Agreed. He had 10.5 PPR points, didn't get as many targets as I thought he'd have.
no.
He had I would say 20-plus yard almost catch. It was overturned on replay. But he looked pretty good. Yeah, that was and honestly, Juju had basically the same exact game as him, and Juju is 17. So if you're deep,
Juju also had an interception go through his hands, hit both of his hands over the middle, and go to a defender late in that game. So we'll see what his involvement in the offense is after that next week. I think the biggest story of this week's waivers for a lot of people is going to be streamers. As we talked about, no Mahomes, no Tua, no Jalen Hurts, and those are the types of quarterbacks that if I drafted them, I didn't draft a QB2. And so this is the week that you kind of go for those. We'll see what Buffalo's defense looks like tonight, but I like Russell Wilson quite a bit if he's been dropped in your league this week.
Okay, yeah, good call on that. And let's see, Russell Wilson is 67% rostered. Baker Mayfield is 63% rostered. He gets Tennessee, who's actually giving up the eighth fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks. Will Levis is 59% rostered. He gets Tampa Bay, so that might be good. Gardner Minshew is always, possible that he can get you a good game. He's at New England. There are some, what's up? Excuse me, I have to sneeze.
Bless you.
Well, did Geno get dropped?
Who?
Geno might have been dropped in a few leagues. I think he's still rostered in a ton of leagues.
As he gets Washington, so should be a nice bounce back week for them.
He should erupt next week. That should be a high scoring game between those two teams. That should be a fun one.
I hope so, because if he doesn't, then the party's over. He's really not having a good year. All right, buy or sell. Ready? Here we go. Buy or sell. You should buy low on Davante Adams. No, seriously, you should. I had to make sure people didn't think I was kidding. You should buy low on Davante Adams. Buy or sell.
I'm willing to buy that. O'Connell only attempted 25 passes. He had 7 targets in the game. It wasn't a good stat line, but as O'Connell gets more comfortable and as the Raiders have tougher competition, I think it could work out for him. Tough matchup next week against the Jets, though.
If you can buy low enough, I'm not probably giving up more than like borderline number 2 wide receiver value for him.
I think he's going to top 16. That's middle wide receiver too.
No, my expectation for him is probably 16 to 20. So I'm thinking like 24-ish.
Okay. So if you had Tony Pollard and someone knocked on your door and offered Davante Adams for Tony Pollard, you would turn it down.
I think we should probably both be banned from trading because we're probably out of the playoffs.
I definitely take Pollard.
I don't have very much hope for either one of them.
I think Pollard had a touchdown called back today.
He did have a touchdown called back.
He did. That'll get you some points in the future.
Yeah. Right.
He's still the by far primary running back involved in the passing game.
It's true.
Adams, I still think he's a buy low, but this was really disappointing. He should have had a good game here. And I am worried about him next week against the Jets. But would you trade Nico Collins for Davante Adams?
I think I'd rather have Adams.
I would too.
Would you trade Tank Dell for Davante Adams?
Yeah.
If I'm getting Adams, yes.
So you'd rather?
I'd rather have Nico.
I'm trading
my way of asking who you'd rather have, Nico or Tank Dell.
I'd rather have Nico. And
I
you know why?
think I'd rather Nico, but there were things that were happening with Tank Dell late in the game that make me think maybe he could become the number one guy.
Something I noticed, and it was the opposite with Douglas. I don't think when they got on their last pressure drive, Douglas saw a target. It was Hunter Henry. It was Juju. It was mostly the veterans. There might even been a deep shot to Rager.
We can look into that.
On CJ Stroud's last drive, it was Tank Dell, and it was spectacular plays.
All right, next up, buy or sell. Rachaad White, who has 4 or more catches for 46 or more receiving yards in 3 straight games, is better than DeAndre Swift rest of season. And I will make it per game, so you don't say, well, Swift has the bye and White doesn't. Per game, Rachaad White is better than DeAndre Swift rest of season.
Do not believe it.
Sorry, this is buy or sell.
Oh, sell. Sell. I'm sorry. Totally different.
Completely different segments. Dave, how about you?
I'm tempted to buy it because in PPR and non-PPR, I think it's easy to sell. But what Rachaad White is doing in the passing game, he's been doing now for the 2 games prior to week number 9. I fully expect him to continue to get a lot of volume through the air because he struggles to run. He didn't struggle to run today, but I think in upcoming matchups that he has, Titans matchup, I would think is still going to be a difficult one. If not that one, then at San Francisco, that's going to be a grapefruit breaker. I think that you'll see White be used more in the passing game, and that just pads his floor. That gives him the opportunity to have a lot of 10 to 13 PPR point games. I think this is what his role is. I think this is who he is. Yeah, I don't think he's getting replaced.
We need to go back to the grapefruit breaker.
Yeah, what is the grapefruit breaker?
I didn't want to say something else.
I don't even know. A cantaloupe breaker?
No, I don't know exactly what it was.
Oh, we're not talking about fruit here, Adam. We're talking about touchdown there.
Okay. Hey, Jamie, what's up?
How are you guys?
We're good, man. Yeah, it's Sunday night, Buy or sell. Deshaun Watson is a must-start quarterback rest of season. He has scored 22.7 or more points in 3 of 4 games this year, not counting that stupid game a few weeks ago. Deshaun Watson is a must-start quarterback rest of season. Buy or sell?
Sell.
Also sell.
Okay, great. Let's go to our winners and losers. Dave has James Conner as a winner. We talked about him. Jahan Dotson, 69% rostered. And he had 4 catches for 69 yards and a touchdown. He had a 33-yard touchdown catch and 8 to 10 targets in 3 straight games now for Jahan Dotson. So he's a winner, and David Njoku's a winner. Dave, go ahead and talk about those 2 guys.
Njoku's easy to talk about. This was his best game with Deshaun Watson this year. The most targets he had, the second most yards he scored. It's his first touchdown from Deshaun Watson. And I think Heath is the one who brought it up. It might have been Jamie. I don't know. I get you guys confused all the time about him keeping that role as the number 2 guy in the passing offense. And maybe that is what's happening here. So I think you can feel good cementing Njoku in. Instead of a streamer, he's basically a must-start fantasy tight end. I think you can feel pretty good starting him over Kyle Pitts moving forward. And then with Dotson, I think about how he's been used the last couple of weeks, and it's exciting. It's different. The fact that they're connecting, Howell and Dotson are connecting, and how often will Washington be in low-scoring defensive battles? This might be the closest they get this game against New England. Next week should be a shootout. The Giants, maybe they don't need to score a ton of points, but they probably will. At Dallas will be a shootout on Thanksgiving. The Commanders' defense isn't going to be very good. So it's going to force Sam Howell to keep putting the ball in the air. And Dotson's is 1B again, just like we planned it.
I hope that Curtis Samuel's absence isn't the only reason Dotson's having a good stretch. I mean, like Byron Pringle, I think, had a good game today. So I don't think so, but I hope not.
Well, was Samuel hurt 3 games ago when Dotson had 8 targets? I don't know what target share that is.
No, he wasn't
3 games ago. I know it was a crappy game for the Commanders.
Jamie, let me get your thoughts on Heath's winners before Heath's thoughts. Well, because Heath already gave his thoughts on 2 of them, Keaton Mitchell and Josh Dobbs. But Aaron Jones is the other one. So, wow, is this encouraging? I mean, for him to get 20 carries and 4 catches, 73 yards and a touchdown on the ground, 26 yards receiving. He was started in 71% of leagues. Jamie, your thoughts on Aaron Jones?
Yeah, Dave said on CBS Sports HQ this morning about what Matt LaFleur said, that they were going to turn him loose, and they clearly did. And so that was fun to see. Hopefully he's healthy and not having to deal with that hamstring injury anymore. Tough matchup going into week 10 when they got to face the Steelers. So I don't want to automatically say he's back as a number 1 running back, but clearly somebody that you could feel comfortable starting once again. So like the setup for him from where we're coming off of this game.
Would you guys rather have Aaron Jones or DeAndre Swift?
Swift.
I think I'd lean Swift. Better offense.
If Jones is really just going to dominate, we got to see it again, I guess. But I mean, he was usually the number 2 ball carrier, and he wasn't even close to that in this game. 20 carries. When was the last time Aaron Jones had 20 carries?
But also they had 38 rush attempts. That's probably not going to happen super regular.
They also played a JV offense. So.
Right.
How many did Dylan have?
9.
Dylan had 9
4
carries.
for Emmanuel Wilson.
Yeah. All right, but it's exciting. It's good stuff. And
there's still room for Jones to get more too. He only played 57% of the snaps.
Okay. All right. I don't think we have to say anything else about Keaton Mitchell.
I'd like you to make note of my name for you. I did that for you.
Game of the week, 1-1. That's right. JB came on talking all this trash this morning because my Chiefs Dolphins pick was not a good one. But I don't think I'm ever going to go with an international game anymore. They just
I don't blame you.
Too much sightseeing. Too much.
Does that mean you're not going to take Colts-Patriots next week?
Okay. I guess never say never. Let's go to the losers here. Heath has Rashawn Johnson as a loser, but 2 that we haven't talked about. DK Metcalf, 1 catch for 50 yards on 4 targets, and Christian Watson. And your thoughts on Metcalf and Watson?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can dismiss some of the JSN targets. He had 7 in this game as they happened later in the game, but Geno and DK were playing when this team was down 30 in the 4th quarter. So I don't know how much that actually matters. Tyler Lockett had twice as many targets. The 3rd straight game where there's this disconnect between Geno and Metcalf, where his completion percentage is so much better than everybody else. And I think, Adam, you highlighted earlier in the year how much deeper his average route depth was. And they just cannot seem to get on the same page. I think you have to view him as a number 3 wide receiver until he shows he's anything more. And I understand completely if some people drop Christian Watson this week.
We'll check on the injury. But yeah, but we were talking about dropping him in a 10-team league. Now I got to start talking about dropping him in a 12-team league, right? Watson?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, for sure. He's been terrible. Jordan Love has been terrible. And he left the game with chest, back, and head injuries.
Yeah. Right. I'm not saying
I have one team where I'm really in bye week hell this week, and I have Mahomes is my only quarterback. I'm dropping Watson. He's the only player that and I'm keeping JSN, for example, over him.
Okay. What a shame. I will say one thing for Metcalf. He's had a history. He cannot. This is why I don't think he's one of the best receivers. He's a good receiver, but he can't beat great corners. And Marlon Humphrey locked him down today. And I wish I'd given that more thought. I didn't really, because from what I saw, there was a lot of shadowing there. I had that game on. I didn't watch every snap, but he just can't. That's why I liked him going into the year, because somewhat. I mean, we all had him as a bust based on ADP.
Just keep in mind, they get Washington this week.
Yeah, it should be good for him, but he hasn't had a good year. I mean, he's had very few good games. All right. Anyway, but yeah, forget it. That's a ramble. It's a rant. All right, Dave, your losers are Pitts and the Rams running backs. And one I don't agree with you on is Jalen Waddle. Come on, man. Be nice to Jalen Waddle.
Well, I mean, he did get hurt today, so that's got something to do with it. But it's not the first time this year he's gotten hurt. And when the Dolphins come back from their bye, I think Devon Achane is going to be back. Remember what Waddle was like when Achane was hitting his stride. Remember what Waddle was like before Achane hit his stride. And it was Mostert that was doing a lot of damage in the ground game. Under 15 PPR points in each game to start the year, under 13 PPR points in each of his first 3. And the Dolphins need their run game back in a big way. I think what they got out of Mostert today was good, but they can get so much more when Achane's in there. And it'll force defenses to play them differently, but it'll take targets away from Jalen Waddle. He was a sell high last week. I think the window closed. As for the Rams running backs, they're on bye next week. Then they do play at Arizona, and Kyron Williams cannot come back for that game. Is it worth holding on to Henderson or Freeman for 2 weeks, knowing that you've got that one matchup? It depends, I think, on your roster construction. You're going to have to look ahead and see how badly you need a running back. But I don't know. If you don't really need a running back, maybe you can trade one of those guys. But I don't know if they're guys that you can feel good about starting outside of the fact that they're playing against Arizona in 2 weeks.
I have another topic I'd like to bring up here. Yeah, I think now's the time to do it. One of the big storylines going into the week was the wide receivers with backup quarterbacks. It was bad.
Yeah, they were all terrible.
Right? I mean,
across the board.
It was bad.
Was there one that got us 13 PPR points?
Did Addison? What did Addison do?
I don't
550. No, he had 10.2. Did he have a 2-point conversion? I think he may have had 12.2.
Jacoby Myers.
Jacoby Myers had a rushing touchdown. Yes.
He still had to answer
it.
the question.
He did. But what does this mean going forward? We're hopeful to get Stafford back after the bye. But
Kyler Murray next week.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but this was
Field
bad.
this week.
I don't see a 2-point conversion for Addison.
No, okay. So I thought someone had one.
Dobbs to Jackson.
Fields is probably playing Thursday. Kyler is playing next week. So there's 2 backups that are gone.
Okay, that's good.
Good.
I do think that going forward, when I'm answering start-sit questions about wide receivers with backup quarterbacks who I think are going to be bad or are just complete unknowns, I'm going to be more negative. I'm going to be more cautious than I was this week.
They were wrong in week 8 with Will Levis.
Right, I was about to say.
Okay, but here's the thing. Tannehill was playing horribly. Like all the instances that you're going to give me where the backup quarterback was good for the receiver, the starter stunk, right? Like Andy Dalton was so much better than Bryce Young. And I said this morning, so I'm sorry for repeating myself. You've heard it. Gardner Minshew, I think, better for wide receivers than Anthony Richardson. And Gardner Minshew, one of the better backup quarterbacks. But when we're talking about rookies or, any unknown, I'm just going to be more cautious going forward. And sure, I'm going to be wrong sometimes, but I'm going to
most likely Josh Dobbs is starting for the rest of the season for Minnesota. How are you going to view that?
Not well. I mean, better than like Jaron Hall. But still a significant decline from Kirk Cousins because we had 7 games.
That goes without saying.
We had 8 games of Dobbs and Marquise Brown, and Marquise Brown was a lot worse than what he was last year with Kyler. So, I mean, but Dobbs is respectable. Dobbs can get his playmakers catches, but he's still a downgrade.
And Heineke for the guys in Atlanta?
Not a downgrade from Drake London. Not a downgrade. I would say an upgrade.
I don't think he can get open like Drake and London at all.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Not a downgrade from Desmond Ridder.
So we're about 50-50 with the backups then.
I'm being clear. If I think that it is an obvious downgrade, I need to downgrade the wide receivers more. I shouldn't have recommended Puka. I don't really regret it with Kupp because he's Kupp. But I shouldn't have recommended Puka as much as I did today. That was a huge mistake from everyone. I mean, let's be real, right? We all missed.
We all missed it. It was terrible. Rippin was horrible.
Yeah. So look, that's one of the frustrating things about this job. It's also kind of fun, but there are no rules. You can't just use the past to predict the future. You don't. Right. So, of course, you're going to be wrong sometimes, but I'm going to be more cautious with these backup quarterbacks, even with great receivers going forward. I don't know if you guys have anything to add.
Each week is different. Each situation is different.
Yeah.
We all do the best we possibly can. We're not trying to sabotage people's lineups. We're not trying to talk up players. We're trying to sabotage yours when we trade with you. Yeah. But we're all trying to do our best. We all genuinely, I say this to people all the time. We all genuinely love helping people win at fantasy. We love getting the tweets and the emails at the end of the year. And when we get bad ones, I got called an ass clown today where someone used the clown emoji because they're so clever. And it sucks. I hate being called an ass clown, but that comes with the territory. That's just part of the game.
What did you do to get called that?
I told him to start. I think he started Gardner Minshew over CJ Stroud.
Oh, that's
was that bad?
All right, let's take a break.
Jamie, you need to change your name on the bottom.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
It's 2-1.
It's 2-1.
I will take a break. Yeah, seriously. Real quick, going through the goal line stuff. I don't really think there was much, except Aaron Jones was in and got the goal line work. Of course, Tyler Algier got the goal line work. Of course, Taysom Hill is crushing fantasy values by the minute. Almost touchdowns. Justin Watson. TJ Hawkinson was wide open in the end zone, and Jaron Hall missed him. Alvin Kamara got tackled at the 1. DeAndre Swift got tackled at the 1, and then neither of them scored. Mike Evans had a 53-yard catch. It was nearly a 54-yard touchdown, but it came back to the 1-yard line. Rashad White scored 2 plays later. Dalton Schultz had an almost touchdown, would have had an even bigger game. Tony Pollard had a 2-yard touchdown run call back, and Jalen Hyatt for the Giants could have had 2 long touchdowns. But Daniel Jones, I mean, this probably won't get mentioned. He was really bad today before, and obviously I feel terrible for the guy. I do. But he should have had Jalen Hyatt potentially on 2 deep touchdowns. He looked pretty rusty. All right, we'll take a break. Kansas City and Miami when we come back. Kansas City 21, Miami 14. I guess it got exciting toward the end. It was 21-0. And gosh, that safety on the Chiefs is fast. Cook, wow.
Like he was shot out of a cannon.
Woo!
Great play.
If you think about it, like the Chiefs probably lose if that Tyreek doesn't fumble there.
Fair.
Quite possibly, yeah.
They were going for points.
I don't think they weren't losing that game. They were so motivated, Heath, and so happy to be there. I heard on the just before the game started, they said that the Chiefs were so pissed off about last week's game. They thought it was like the same as losing in the Super Bowl. That's how motivated they were. It's like they're gonna have a good game here.
They didn't really, but
yeah, defensively, obviously. All right, what do you got?
First drive, man, they looked so awesome.
Yeah, what do you got for Believe It or Not?
This one came in from a listener. Believe it or not, Patrick Mahomes will not be a top 5 fantasy quarterback rest of season. Basically had one really great game.
Yeah, I could see him turning it on in the second half and finishing 3rd, 4th, or 5th.
All right, so rest of season, Josh Allen's better. Joe Burrow's better.
Probably.
Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
There's 3.
Jackson.
I think he can beat Lamar. I think he can beat Tua.
What about CJ Stroud?
Justin Herbert could beat him.
CJ Stroud.
I think when the stats refresh in the morning, Stroud and Mahomes may be tied in terms of fantasy points per game.
Fantasy points per game. Yeah. Wouldn't shock me. A 50 burger will do that for you. But rest of the season, I think he could be 5th. Let's put it at 5.
Lamar versus Mahomes is really interesting because they're both playing really good football. They're just not getting the fantasy points. Like Lamar Jackson, with all these rushing touchdowns, I think Lamar Jackson's playing fantastic football.
He's doing great.
But it's not always translating. It's so similar to what's happened the last 2 years. Big game and then 3 bad games, then a huge game. Yeah. So right now you have to decide Mahomes versus Lamar. Who do you got?
Mahomes.
I think one that's interesting if he's healthy is Fields.
If he's right, yeah, maybe.
Anything else from this game? Like, Mostert 12 ends up with a good stat line: 12 catches, 85 yards, and a touchdown. He's rolling.
It'd be a great day.
If it was 12 catches, Alvin Kamara would be like, "Damn,
you said 12 catches." God,
who cares? We know what you meant.
Well, but what I was going to say is his role in the passing game has pretty much disappeared. What kind of running back is Raheem Mostert going to be when Achane gets back in fantasy? What do you think?
I think he'll get about 12 carries, but I'm not sure if he'll get 85 yards and a touchdown on them. He might get 40, 50, 60 yards. Touchdown every other game. RB2.
Depends. Are they playing a good team or a bad team?
Yep. They have the Jets twice still, so they can play a bad team and be bad, maybe.
They have the Raiders when they come back from the bye. How many good teams do they even have left? Goodness gracious, their schedule. Dallas in week 16, at Buffalo in week 17, or at Baltimore, my bad. Buffalo in the final game of the year at home week 18.
Oh, wow, so they better get some wins now because they're going
I wonder if it's a home road thing or good bad thing, like good team bad team thing. Because all their tough games have been away from Miami.
Yeah. And also they finally they're healthy now. They lost the lineman today, but they're healthy. And Achane is going to make a pretty big difference, I think, but we'll see. By the way, Schaefer's taking Dobbs over Mahomes the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Last word, Heath.
I agree with that.
All right, let's go to our next game. By the way,
Not a word on Pacheco, huh?
you're holding. Well, I mean, you're holding Rashee Rice through the bye, right?
Yeah.
Yes, try to.
Saints 24, Bears 17.
Taysom Hill and Cole Kmet are both set it and forget it tight ends rest of the season.
Yeah, I believe it. Komet
Yeah,
will
I
be.
mean, especially you got Komet coming back. I mean, excuse me, you got Fields coming back.
Yep, that's why.
So that's easy for Komet. And Taysom is just you ride the ebbs and flows.
Is he
How
kind of
many
like
routes?
Gabe Davis at tight end?
He's like Gabe Davis at tight end. That's perfect. You know how many routes he ran today? Last week he ran 12. Did he run more or less this week?
Fewer.
More.
More is correct. 13 routes.
Yeah.
13
right.
routes. But the dude's 6 points at minimum each week, scores a touchdown pretty much every single week. This week,
I've
too.
gone from Taysom Hill being maybe my least favorite player because of all the fantasy damage he does. I think he's my favorite player now. I think he's my favorite player. I love Taysom Hill.
That sums you up to a T.
He's well, embrace it at this point. I mean, he's so good at what he does, and good for him. I love it. Yeah, but there's obviously downside in PPR leagues because he's just not involved. But
Except
all right.
today he had 4 catches.
Yeah. Anything else from this?
Like
game?
why don't they just use him more? That's a good question.
Anything else from this game?
Yeah.
Olave. Talk about Olave. He had a touchdown. He had 6 for 46 and a touchdown on 8 targets. Derek Carr threw
211
yards and 34 passes. How are we feeling, Jamie? How are we feeling about Olave?
Same that I've felt about him all season. Start him. Top 20 receiver without a question.
Yep. I like that.
Olave or Adams rest of season?
Olave.
Agreed.
Yeah, probably.
Next game.
Hold on. Kamara only played half the snaps. That doesn't bug you?
First bad game since he's come back. I don't care.
Okay. Fine.
No,
7
and
of
what
10
bugs-
snaps inside the 10.
What bugs me is that, forget about inside the 10. We got to start going inside the 5 here, or inside the 3 even, because it's Taysom Hill. He had a carry down to the 1, and then see you later. Here comes Taysom Hill. It's gonna happen. It's annoying.
But I think that if there is a concern, it's that he wasn't as involved in the passing game. Like that's the really problem to me.
Yeah, well, 4 for 44 is pretty good, but
Not for him.
not for him.
He had 5 targets. Juwan Johnson had 5 targets. Taysom Hill had 5 targets. Saints are diversifying. By the way, Michael Thomas, 1 target, no catches. That stunk.
All right, next game. Cleveland with a shutout win over Arizona, 27-0. Heath?
Go right back to starting Marquise Brown and Trey McBride with Kyler Murray back next week.
I'm believing.
I'm believing. Let's talk about the Browns running backs. Jerome Ford. Who's your favorite? Let me just get to the official stats here because I know Kareem Hunt had a touchdown. Jerome Ford had 20 carries for 44 yards, but he also had 5 catches for 33 yards. Kareem Hunt, 14 carries for 38 yards. He averaged 2.7 yards per carry, and he scored a touchdown. They were playing the Cardinals, right?
Yep.
This was bad. But they both ended up with decent fantasy games. Who do you like better going forward? And Pierre Strong had 4 touches, which was good.
Not starting any of them next week.
At Baltimore.
Going to be tough at Baltimore next week. In a vacuum, it's Ford. He played 60% of the snaps against Arizona. He dominated on 3rd and 4th downs. Both he and Hunt each had 2 of 4 snaps inside the 10. I think that's going to be how they work moving forward. Is Ford somewhere between 55 and 67% of the snaps. Kareem gets the rest. Maybe Kareem is the better goal line guy.
Amari
Ford
Cooper
in every instance for me.
Amari Cooper must start.
As long as Watson's starting.
Next week's a little tough, but I think he's better with better quarterback play. You feel more comfortable with it.
Even if you take away the fluky touchdown that he had, he would have had 4 catches for 128 yards. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to our next game. Green Bay 20 and the Rams 3. Another good one.
Aaron Jones is the only must roster Packer.
Believe.
Oh, yeah. Bye.
Cut,
Bye.
cut AJ Dillon, cut Romeo Dobbs, cut Jordan Love, cut Christian Watson.
I mean, Dylan's still a handcuff, but yeah.
Do you stream Luke Musgrave?
No.
Not against Pittsburgh.
Not against Pittsburgh. Fair enough.
If there are two quarterbacks where I feel like I don't really know who they're going to throw to more on a given week, the two that come to mind are Stroud and Love. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I never felt I don't feel like either of them has fallen in love with a number one target. Although I guess I'd say if Watson's out, I think Dobbs is more interesting in that.
It's so weird because they kind of came out and said, what was it, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, that they really, because Dobbs was the number one, and they really wanted him to spread the ball around. They wanted to spread it around, and they've been doing that, and it's worked terribly. They've been awful. So maybe they'll go back to letting him throw to who he wants to.
Okay. I really don't think we have to talk much more about this guy. You know what? Going into their bye week, how do you guys feel about Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp?
Holds.
For sure.
Braveheart.
Hold. Oh, no, I get that. But are they buy lows?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Stafford's coming back, right?
Presumably.
He was presumably, I don't know, how close was he really to playing today? The fact that like he was questionable,
This is not fair because it's not the same guy and it's not the same injury, but I just have flashbacks of those first 3 weeks after Russell Wilson came back from his sideways finger, and that was awful. So I'm a little skeptical that they'll just be right back when Stafford's back.
Well, we say that we would love to have Kupp and Nacua with Stafford. Would we love to have Kupp and Nacua with Stafford when they take on Cleveland and then at Baltimore in weeks 13 and 14? And then New Orleans at home in week 16. Maybe that doesn't scare you that much.
No, these guys move around in the slot so much. Kupp's in the slot over half the time at this point. And those are tough matchups, but I just don't think I can. If they're Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, I don't care. Right? I can't like go schedule chasing, I guess, at this point.
Okay. But I care about it for Stafford because he's going to be under some serious heat.
But he's been bad a lot this year, and those guys were still great.
When you say you can't go schedule chasing, Adam, are you just saying you're viewing both Puka and Kupp as if Stafford's there, they're must starts?
That's what I'm hoping. I mean, that's what it was.
Right.
If Stafford's healthy, then yeah, I think so. Are you?
If he's actually healthy, yes. If he's playing through an injury, I'm not sure.
Yeah. All right, Minnesota 31, Atlanta 28.
Is there anybody in this game we've not talked about? We talked Bijan Robinson, we talked Kyle Pitts, we talked Joshua Dobbs.
We've talked Bijan Robinson and that we're frustrated, but I guess put it in context. How do you feel about Bijan rest of season?
I hopefully the fumble doesn't matter that much, and it just keep being the dumb usage we've seen. I think he's a high-end number 2 running back now. I'm not sure he's top 12 rest of season.
Yep.
Just don't ask me to name 12 running backs right now. Off the top of my head. I think I could. I'm pretty sure I could.
You take
one of them would not be Alexander Madison, but if Akers has another Achilles injury, then Madison's going to be theoretically the main guy for the Vikings rest of season.
I'm not taking Alexander Madison over Bijan Robinson.
I'm not.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, of course not.
Yeah, you take
HN. Hey, you would have won.
Take HN over him, right?
HN over Bijan.
I think.
Right.
It's hard.
I'm there.
Yeah, but I don't know how healthy he is.
Sure. If you knew he'd be back at some point in the next 3 weeks, including the bye, and one of the next
Bijan.
2 games.
If it's not next week, I'm taking Bijan.
Definitely Joe Mixon now, for sure.
Yeah, I think Mixon too.
Wow, after the touchdown, how about that? How
Cats
about James Conner?
No.
Conner would be closer than he's been at any point.
I would put Connor in the same group as HN. If you promised me that they were both coming back next week or next game, then yes.
Okay.
I can't see how those two are in the same group because HN could be like RB1 rest of season, but
James Conner's always like a top 6 running back when he's
No,
healthy.
no, I agree. I just it's weird to say that he's in the
Okay.
same group.
When he's healthy.
You know what's nice about deep leagues is when you're forced to start Jonnu Smith. And
Yep.
you have no other options.
Happened to me.
You
Yeah.
kicked my butt in the podcast league with him.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
That's good.
Oh, did I? Like
my-
you don't know.
I didn't look. My Ken Walker team. I figured I hadn't.
No,
wasn't doing
he
well.
doesn't look, because anytime I beat him, I always surprise him with it on Sunday night. So I believe him. Yeah, you beat me.
I had Jonnu in that league. Oh, good. All right, 4-5. I think we're getting back into it. And thankfully, I traded Justin Jefferson. All right, let's go to Baltimore 37 and Seattle 3. I'll do a real quick one. Believe it or not, the Ravens are the best team in football.
Believe it.
Nope. I don't believe it.
I've settled on a top 3. That's all I've got. Top 3. I know who the 3 best teams in football are.
I
Same.
don't. So who are they?
It's the Ravens, the Chiefs, and the Eagles.
Ravens, Chiefs, and Eagles.
Yep. Totally agree.
I think the Bengals might be there.
They might be.
Obviously,
They're not in
they're
the top 3.
playing right now.
They're in the next tier. They're not in the top 3.
They could be in the top 3 in a couple of weeks.
I don't know how you could just dismiss them. They went to the Super Bowl and the AFC Championship game.
They're great, but the other 3 teams right now are still better.
Guess what? Week 11, Bengals at Ravens.
Nice.
That'll be fun.
Nice.
We'll decide it on the field.
All right, so fantasy. Believe it.
No idea what you said.
No, none of the words that you said actually sounded
I
like
think
words.
your stream dropped for a second.
Oh,
I
I thought you froze, so I was making fun of you for it. But really, I froze. What'd you say?
we didn't hear your question.
Oh, Heath, what's the believe it or not for this game?
But
Is this what it's like when my stream froze?
no,
all
you
those
just
times?
freeze.
Is this the Baltimore Seattle game?
Yes, it still is.
Okay. Jackson Smith and Jigba will be the best Seahawks wide receiver in the second half of the season.
Don't believe it.
I don't.
I don't either. Do you, Heath?
I'm getting closer.
It's a big week for Geno coming up in week 10.
Yep.
If you're going to trust him in fantasy at all the rest of the season. Washington at home. If he can't have success this week, there's no chance for him.
In the fourth quarter, JSN had 4 targets. He caught 4 of them for 50 yards.
If JSN is the best receiver on the team, that's probably a bad thing for all of the receivers.
So I disagree with that. I still think that his overall ceiling as a wide receiver is the best receiver on this team.
Is anybody worried about Ken Walker?
Yep.
Yeah.
He's been bad. He didn't even lead the team in snaps. It was Charbonnet. But I think some of that had to do with the fact that they were trailing so badly. Charbonnet played every snap on 3rd and 4th downs, 13 of 13, 57% of the snaps to Walker's 47% of the snaps.
And this was the CBS game. Tom Spencer told us that prior to the game, that they're wanting to get him more involved. Not that it's necessarily meaning that Ken Walker is going to be benched, but they want to have more of a tandem. And we've seen it now 2 weeks in a row. Again, take the scores for what they were. Competitive game last week, not so much this week.
You think you'd rather have Ken Walker or Bijan Robinson?
Bijan.
Bijan and PPR, Walker and none.
I'll take Walker.
Okay. All right. Zay Flower. Is anyone considering dropping Zay Flowers?
No, but you're not
No.
starting him anytime soon.
What about Gus Edwards?
Run game was good today. He was not needed.
Zay Flowers was not. What about Gus Edwards? I mean, how high are you on Gus Edwards?
Low end number 2.
Yep. Touchdown dependent. Touchdown or bust.
First time in 4 games that he wasn't dominating touches for the run game. I mean, Hill had more than twice as many carries as Gus. Mitchell almost had twice as many carries as Gus. If he doesn't score those 2 touchdowns, you kind of got lucky, very lucky with Gus Edwards this week.
Justice Hill was all garbage time, mostly garbage time, though.
I wonder if they make the transition to, using Mitchell and Edwards as a duo
I hope
instead of Hill and Edwards.
I hope so. So Gus Edwards had 5 carries for 52 yards and 2 touchdowns. Keaton Mitchell had 9 carries for 138 yards and a touchdown. And Justice Hill had 13 carries for 40 yards. And Justice Hill had, like I said, a lot of it at the very end of a 34-point win. All right, on to our next game. Houston 39, Tampa Bay 37. Yeah, we've talked a lot about this game too. But what do you got?
You can just drop both the Texans running backs and just not think about either one of them.
Yeah.
Nah.
It's Pierce. Pierce is the one that I'm hung up on.
Yeah,
Pierce was a little bit of a winner today.
Yes.
Right. If their offense is going to be this good, it's eventually going to. You might just need a running back.
No. I mean, how many games we need to see it from? This is the worst fantasy backfield. They've had 2 games over 9 PPR points on the season. Both of them were by Pierce. They scored 1 touchdown. It's gross. It's absolutely gross. And so what? CJ Stroud's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Chris Godwin. Do you have at this point? I mean, such a bad game. They score 37 points. And Chris Godwin has 2 catches for 16 yards on 6 targets.
Ugh.
This was a rare situation where they're getting rushing touchdowns. That just doesn't happen for them.
All right, but still, only 6 targets. Only 30 pass attempts for Mayfield.
20% target share.
Maybe I'm being too hard on him.
No,
look, it isn't as good of a season for Chris Godwin. Let's throw that out there, right?
I wouldn't panic, but I think you just treat him more as a number 3 receiver. But they get a very favorable matchup next week against the Titans.
And then 2 weeks after that, they're at Indy, and then Carolina, and then at Atlanta.
Let's go to New England and Washington. New England. What the hell was the score of this game? Because
20-17 Commanders.
Okay, I had New England 20 and Washington 17. Washington had the ball for 37 minutes and 10 seconds. Remember, I talked about that with the Patriots, how bad they've been in time of possession 4 or 5 straight games now. Heath, what's our fantasy? Believe it or not.
Sam Howell is the top 12 quarterback rest of season.
I'm there.
Sure. He's in the blob of borderline starters.
Right. 6 of 8 games now with at least 21 fantasy points. Playing on a team whose defense stinks.
He didn't have 21 today, did he? Or did he?
Yeah, he had 22.
Did he?
325, 1-1, and 27 yards rushing.
I'm just looking at Adam's notes. It said 19.7. So now I've got to go.
Maybe it was 19.7.
I've got him at 19.7 on my screen as well.
13 plus 4.
He had some fumbles.
Yeah, you're right. My bad. I thought I saw 22.
I was going to lose a lot of confidence in myself if I had gotten that wrong because I already got the score of the game wrong.
Well, you might have seen, you probably saw David League where you get bonuses for 300 yards. He may have gotten
Could be something like that. Yep.
Really? Okay. All right. So
part of the time of possession was a big run by Ramondre too. Don't forget that.
Yes, Ramondre, nice game. Brian Robinson with a nice game. They both scored touchdowns. Ramondre Stevenson had 9 carries for 87 yards and a touchdown. But he also had 4 catches for 42 yards. So he's been a frustrating player. What's the difference between Rachaad White and Ramondre Stevenson?
But while you guys were doing the show, that was one of the things I did on CBS Sports HQ. Like you're getting rewarded now for Stevenson and White the last month, basically, with what they've done in the passing game. So Stevenson had the one hiccup, I think it was last week. White for 3 straight games has, started to look like that guy again. And that's what we need. And for Stevenson, it was the first game without Bourne, first, game without Devontae Parker. So they're missing options in the passing game. They're playing the Colts. I know the Colts run defense looked better today. I don't care. It was the Panthers. Stevenson should have a huge game in Germany next week.
The answer to the question, Adam, nothing.
Is different between them. Yeah.
They're the same.
The Colts, if they're still without their leading tackler, Zaire Franklin, I think, was the leading tackler in the NFL.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a big loss.
That could be very favorable for Ramondre. All right, speaking of the Colts, they beat the Panthers 27-13. Rough day for Bryce Young. And not a good day for – this is exactly what we were fearing for Gardner Minshew, 26 pass attempts and a bad game. But Heath, what do we got here?
The Adam Thielen wide receiver 1 run is over.
Don't believe it.
Adam wants to believe it.
No, I don't actually. I mean, 26 pass attempts, but I'm starting to feel like maybe some of the receivers who have struggled. No, it's not, I don't believe it. I don't believe you.
Against Bears
Bryce
next
Young
week,
was
it should be
awful.
better.
He was awful.
Terrible.
Yeah,
Awful.
Was he better than CJ Stroud today?
Not.
I mean, CJ Stroud can play like Bryce Young maybe for 2 games and still win rookie of the year.
All right. So
Well, that's over, isn't it?
Yeah.
What did you make?
As long as he stays healthy, it's a wrap.
What did you make of the Jonathan Taylor, Zach Moss splits? Because Taylor with 23 touches, Moss with 7.
He put Moss in a box. Taylor had 75% of the snaps. Taylor dominated on 3rd and 4th downs, 11 of 13 snaps. Taylor took every snap inside the 10. Taylor had a good stat line. I mean, not great rushing efficiency, but at least the numbers were good for fantasy. And he's
You remember when Vince Young won the dunk contest?
who? What?
When Vince Young won the dunk, Vince Carter won the
Vince
dunk
Young
contest.
won I remember when Vince Carter won the Rose Bowl.
When Vince Carter won the dunk contest, it's over for Zach Moss.
It's over for Zach Moss.
But we did think that a couple weeks ago, or at least I did. And,
He scored a touchdown
Moss
last
came
week.
back
From
from
He got 18 carries, and it was lucky that he fell in the end zone.
This has been a pretty bad rookie class, I think.
What?
Pretty disappointing so far.
Are you
What are
crazy?
you talking about?
I guess I'm just looking at the first round picks, but yeah, I don't know. Like,
Yeah, you're missing out on Puka Nacua and Tank Dell.
that's true. Yeah, I am. I'm looking at the first round. Hasn't been that
Addison's
good.
had a good season. Zay Flowers has been okay.
Right, he's been okay. I mean,
Anthony
I don't.
Richardson was great before he got hurt.
Yeah,
Devon
but he's
Achane's
not
been
playing.
awesome.
He's not playing. Bryce Young has been horrible.
Is awesome. Dalton Kincaid starting to
I
become
just
awesome.
looking at the first round picks, like I said.
Look at what Jahmyr Gibbs has done the last couple of weeks.
Look at what Jahmyr Gibbs has done most of the season.
I have a team. I've told you about this team a few times. I did a complete reboot with a dynasty roster, a 10-team league. I am starting predominantly all rookies, and I'm going to be 6-3.
Okay, I
No
should have looked
way.
at other
That's
rounds.
amazing.
I should have looked at other rounds. I apologize. Let's go to our next game here. And
How do you think the tight
Philadelphia-
end class has been so far?
Good. Philadelphia 28.
Wait, was
Dallas.
that still the Colts game, by the way?
Yes, sure.
You talked about Josh Downs getting hurt?
Yeah, I mentioned it. Yeah.
Okay.
Philadelphia and Dallas 28-23.
I got one for you. Believe it or not, Dak Prescott's a must-start quarterback rest of the way.
That's a
Sorry. Oh wait, did I do that one? I didn't do that.
No,
one.
we did CJ Stroud versus Dak Prescott.
Right.
Yeah,
that's a tough one. I'd
Dak.
take Dak.
I would take Dak as well.
And I took Stroud.
You take Dak over Stroud? That's interesting. I'd probably go Stroud.
But yeah, I think he is I think he's definitely ahead of Sam Howell. And we just said Sam Howell was top 12.
Here's the problem for Dak. If you look at the Cowboys, they have had a weird season. They've had so many blowouts, either on one side of the coin or the other.
They won't have one next week against the Giants.
Their next 2 games are the Giants and the Panthers, right? And then the Commanders. So I actually think I see some traps there for Dak Prescott because this was a perfect game for him. I mean, the Eagles, I think, are at this point a good matchup for quarterbacks, and you can't run on them.
Maybe, yeah.
So maybe I have to reconsider. Like I believe in Dak. I always worry about the game scripts with him. This was like the third game with more than 34 pass attempts, 4th game with more than 31 pass attempts. So he's usually 31 or below. But one thing I noticed, and I don't know if it happened today because Ferguson had a big game. The previous 2 games, both big games for Dak, that was his highest. Both of those were his 2 highest wide receiver target percentages. So he was throwing more to mostly Lamb, which was a good thing. But I do think this is interesting, just this angle here that they are going to start blowing out teams. Probably Giants and Panthers at least have favorable. I wouldn't say no, but unfavorable game scripts for Dak.
But there was one blowout where he played well. Was it? Look it up.
The Jets game, 23.6 points against the Jets.
Yeah, like I could see that. It's just a matter of does the defense turn over the opponent so much that he's not having to do very much? because they can't run the ball to the same level. They're just not having that type of success.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the whole thing for me. That's why I'm excited about Dak.
And you got the two targets. The two top targets have been established. It's Lamb and Ferguson, and they're so locked in right now.
Yeah.
Seems that way. Yeah.
Jalen Hurts only threw 23 passes. Only 3 of them went to Devontae Smith. How many? Brown had 9. So.
Oh, but now you got the setup you love for Devontae Smith, right?
Yes.
Goddard's out.
Well, it depends on how bad the injury is for Goddard.
Yeah. Las Vegas 30 and the Giants 6. Our last game.
You saved the best for last, huh?
Oh, I forgot we even had this one left. Believe it or not, Josh Jacobs is
Let's look at that lower third. Look at that lower third. Raiders.
Pierce,
Here's
Giants.
the Giants.
Very good. Very good, Schaefer. Bravo.
My gambling advice of wrong team favored wasn't very good. No, Josh Jacobs was fixed by the coaching change.
And quarterback change.
No, and the Giants. He looked great last week. That was the best he'd looked last week against the Lions. And look, they won 30-6 ago with 20 carries.
26 carries, 98 yards, 2 tutties, no targets.
Lost the had the 100-yard bonus and lost it with like a minute 13 left in a 30-6 game. Lost 3 yards and lost the 100-yard bonus.
That's funny.
Bijan or Jacobs?
Jacobs.
Saquon or Jacobs?
Jacobs.
Also Saquon. Wait, Saquon or Jacobs?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say Bijan. I think I'll take Jacobs.
Poor Saquon.
Who's worried about Saquon?
You got to be.
I'd still take him over Bijan and Pollard.
Yeah,
we know-
I think I would too.
Do we know what they're going to do? Is it going to be DeVito?
I don't know. It's either going to be him or Matt Barkley, I think.
Carson
DeVito
Wentz is still out there.
played okay. You know, I think they're going to just
Joe Flacco.
I don't think they want to win another game.
They
this point.
shouldn't want to win
And
another
you've
game.
got a running back playing with a high ankle sprain. It's conceivable that they shut him down at some point.
But why would they shut him down?
Right.
for his
He's a free
benefit?
agent after this year.
Oh, they might want to keep him. They could franchise tag him again
They
for
could,
his benefit. I think
because they've been so great at managing their salary cap.
Can they use that in contract negotiations? We'll give you this amount for next year, and you don't have to play again the rest of the year. You can go home right now. You don't have to play the next 6 weeks.
I'm not
And
having
you agree to
conversation.
$12 million next year.
I'm having a fantasy conversation. I think if you're looking at a player who is playing through a high ankle sprain and his team is sinking, I think as a Barkley manager, you have to at least consider the possibility that he gets shut down.
Over under 1.5 games for Darren Waller rest of season.
He's
Over.
not coming back.
He's
Yeah,
I don't think there's any chance he's coming back.
yeah.
okay. I'll
Like-
take it over. Try to remember this bet.
Like
You
Vince
think he's coming
Vaughn
back to
against USC. It's
No.
over.
Why would he come back to play? He's already going to miss the next 3 games after this.
Terrific joke. I heard it, Heath. Good job.
Yeah.
Why would he come back to play? Because players play.
That's true.
Players
I get
play.
that.
We do this every year. They
He's
come
going to
in-
miss 3 games.
He's
Their
got
buys in
a
week
nerve
13.
issue in his hamstring, and he's dealing with a hamstring injury right now. Like, if he wants to
Right.
play next year, why would he play this year? He might have to have surgery on his hamstring.
He would come back week 14 against Green Bay. That's the next time. That's the earliest we can see Darren Waller.
Let's go. Let's win that game. I'm circling that one. I want a dub.
Matt
right, we'll
Barkley will
talk about-
need him by then if he's even the quarterback.
We'll talk to y'all later. Thanks for watching and
Is
listening, everybody.
Tyrod the starter then?
Oh, probably. Yeah. At that point, Tyrod probably. Yeah.
We might come back for that.
All right. I want that dub. You look out, Green Bay. We're coming for you. See you later.